What's going on, everybody, and welcome to your Financial Dose. In today's video, we're going to be talking about why starting to invest early can drastically change the amount of money that you have when you're ready to retire. To illustrate how compound interest can have a drastic impact on the amount of savings that you can accumulate throughout your life, we're going to walk through two examples. So we're going to have two characters. The first person, we'll call them Bill, and the second person, we'll call them Bob. And Bill, the first person, what he's going to do is he's going to be investing or saving $1,000 per month for 20 years. So that's 240 months where he's saving $1,000. And by saving $1,000, he's going to be investing this $1,000 in, let's say, the stock market at 8%. So every year he's going to be making 8% on his money, and he's going to be doing this for 20 years while putting $1,000 aside every month. And at the end of this 20-year period, he's going to have accumulated $590,000. And the breakdown between what he contributed and the amount of money that he actually earned in the market or in whatever other investment vehicle he has is simple. Since it's 20 years, you have 240 months, he put $1,000 per month, so he contributed about $240,000 to this account, and he generated another $240,000 in earnings or in capital gains or in dividends or in interest or in whatever sort of investment vehicle that he invested in. So if you put it in a mutual fund, then you would have some dividends, he'd have some distributions, and he'd have some capital gains. And then Bill, after 20 years, let's say he starts this process at 20. So now he's 40 and he has $590,000 because he was able to put aside $1,000 a month for 20 years. Now, from the age of 40 all the way to the age of 60, so over the next 20 years of his life, he says, you know what? I'm going to stop putting $1,000 aside, but I'll leave my $590,000 in my investing account, and I'll just let it grow for the next 20 years at the same rate of return of 8%. And at the end of these 20 years, he will actually have accumulated a little over $2.9 million without contributing a single penny. Now, had he continued to contribute the $1,000, instead of having $2.9 million, he would actually end up with $3.5 million. And even though, you may think, well, he's still putting money, why is that difference so small compared to the huge $2.9 million number? That's because the investing base, or the $590,000 that he actually starts within his account from the age of 40 to 60, is much larger compared to the tiny $1,000 contributions that he was making initially. That's why there isn't such a substantial difference between $2.9 million and $3.5 million, as opposed to, $590,000 all the way up to $2.9 million. So this is Bill. Now we're going to go look at Bob. Bob didn't see the point of investing young. He didn't see the point of starting, I'm too young to start investing. I don't make enough money now. I'll start when I have a family. I'll start when I'm married. I'll start when I have kids, or I'll start when I'm making more money. Right now I want to spend my money. I want to buy a car. I want to buy a house, whatever. It doesn't really matter what he chose to do with his money. He wanted to travel. There's nothing wrong with that. We all make choices, but this is the impact that it will have on your personal finances. So from the age of 20 to 40, he saves absolutely nothing. And then from the age of 40 to 60, that's when he chooses to start saving. And just like his friend Bill, he will end up with $590,000 at the end of those 20 years because, he's investing at 8%. It's the exact same thing that Bill did, just that Bob is doing it 20 years later. But now the interesting question to ask is, how much does Bob need to save to end up with the same $2.9 million that his friend Bill has? And that answer is $5,000. He needs to save 5 times more money than Bill to actually retire with the same amount of wealth at the end or at the age of 60. So just because Bill started 20 years earlier, he actually stopped contributions at the age of 40 and just let his account grow all the way up till the age of 60. He was able to get $2.9 million, and he only put $240,000 out of pocket. On the other hand, Bob, who started investing at the age of 40, needed to put 5 times more money to actually reach that certain level of wealth. And if we take the example where Bill kept investing that $1,000 for the full 40 years and actually reached $3.5 million, Bob would have had to put $6,000 per month in his account to actually retire at the same level. So 6 times more money just because he decided to start later on in life. And yes, you can look at these examples, or you can move the timeline around. Instead of saying 20 and 40 years, well, you could have done 40 years and 30 years or 40 years and 35 years. And you see how that extra 5 years or 10 years can make such a big difference in your savings. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It's compound interest, but we'll approach compound interest by looking at the rule of 72. So what the rule of 72 says is it'll tell you how many years it'll take for your money to double. And it's quite simple. So now in our example, we've been using the rate of return of 8%. So if you take 72, you divide it by 8 for the 8%, then that gives you 9. So it'll take you 9 years to double your money. Or said differently, your money will double every 9 years. If you invest for double the amount of time, so if instead of doing 20 years, we're going to be doing 40 years, we're going to have 2 extra doubling periods in this extra 20 years because 9 fits into 20 at least twice. So that's why you go from 590,000 and then you double 590,000, that gives you about like 1.2 million. And then you double that again, and that gives you about 2.4, 2.5. And then you have those extra 2 years at the end for the complete 20 extra years that you invest over Bob. That's how Bill was able to amass so much more money, even though he stopped his contributions, because the power of compound interest, illustrated by the rule of 72, shows you how impactful it is when you actually double your money. So if you start investing, you have $1,000, you double it to 2,000, 2,000 to 4,000. They're very small increments of doubling. But when you're talking about having a much larger portfolio, so talking about his initial 590,000 after that 20-year period, which is pretty much composed of half of his contributions, or half by his contributions, because he made 240 payments of $1,000. That's $240,000. And then the other half, or a little more than half, was actually making money in the market. So it's still a pretty substantial amount of money that he actually contributed to the account. But now, since he has 590,000 and it can double twice, so as we showed before, that brings you all the way up to 2.9 million just based on the fact that you're able to double your money over an extended period of time. And that is where the true magic of compound interest lies. It's your money will work for you much harder, let's say, over a longer period of time, because it will be able to double more times. And that's why Bob had to contribute $6,000 to reach the point that Bill would be at if he would have kept his $1,000 contributions over that complete 40-year period. So it's very important for us to understand how significant starting young to save and to put money aside and to invest that money, even though it is so small, or you think the amounts are so small compared to what you think you'll be able to do in 20 years. So that's where the importance of starting to invest early lies. It's even though we may think that what we can contribute to our investing accounts at the age of 20, 25, whatever, are so small compared to what we'll be able to do at the age of 40 or 45, it's important to start young, because if you're able to sort of have that small nest egg, say you have $50,000 in the first 10 years of investing in your life, well, over that period of time, your money will be able to double or triple or quadruple before the age of 45, when you may have initially wanted to start investing. And even though it may seem so insignificant to invest like, $50 a month, $20 a month, just to get into the habit of putting money aside and to sort of develop that mindset will definitely shift your perspective in the future, and you'll be able to save even more money in the future because you've been doing this for so long and you sort of came into the habit of putting money aside. So not only do you get more doubling periods, or compound interest can work for you over a longer period of time, also the fact that you get into the habit of putting money aside will make it easier for you in the future to put more money aside, just because you've been doing this all your life. And to you it makes sense, and you've been able to see the fruits of your labor in terms of investing because you've seen your nest egg grow. And I think that's very important for people to who haven't really seen much success with investing or who aren't too familiar with it, to just start with small sums at first, get the hang of it, look at your money go up, go down based on market fluctuations, but overall just to get in the mindset of maybe making a budget and putting money aside and getting in the habit of doing that. And when we're young, we have much less responsibilities than when we have a family, we have a home, mortgage, kids, schools, all these huge expenses that we don't have when we're younger. So yes, we make much less money or a little bit less money when we're younger, but our expenses are significantly less. So this is also a great time for us to start saving and to start testing the waters. And losing $1,000 today isn't so bad because you have a lot of time in your life to catch up. Yes, losing $1,000 today means that $1,000 doesn't compound over, the next 40 years, but it's much better you lose $1,000 today than say $20,000 in 25 years from now because you didn't learn or you made a mistake that you didn't make when you were younger, and it'll cost you a little bit more because you'll be playing with more money or with bigger volumes or with a bigger portfolio, or it's either I need this money in 5 years for my kid's college, but then you do something that wasn't necessarily the best thing because you've never learned in the past, you haven't learned from your mistakes, and then you end up losing a chunk of that money. It's much more painful doing that at a later time in life when you have a lot more responsibilities than doing that at an earlier time in life when you have a lot of time to recoup that money that you may have lost or that you may have not done the best things with or that you may have spent. So this video was all about illustrating how important it is to start saving young. And there's so many different ways we can illustrate this, but I thought that using an example between, Bill and Bob would be a great way to sort of make you guys more familiar with this topic, but I will definitely be revisiting this in future videos. Again, guys, thank you for watching. I really hope you learned something. And if you have any comments or questions, please comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.